Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Castle Rock Season 1, Episode 10. It is the season finale. It is called Romans. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. What do you think of the finale? Right, just before we get into details, I just want, are you satisfied with... Because keeping in mind, this is supposed to be the conclusion completely to this story. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I liked some stuff. I think it's a bit overstuffed,
Mm-hmm.
kind of all over the place in its pacing.
I'm a little bit underwhelmed, I have to admit. I thought, because of the time jump towards the end, right? It cuts a year later. I was kind of shocked when it jumped forward, as if the story at the moment had finished. Because
Yeah,
I didn't think it was. I was like, oh, he's got the gun on him. Okay, cool. And then, oh, we're just jumping ahead. Like, I felt underwhelmed. Like, the conclusion was kind of like just
and
non-existent.
yeah, and we'll get to this more after the discussion of the episode in particular. But
Hmm.
there are things now that throughout the season I like less, and having seen where we've come at the end.
Okay. Okay. Um. Right. So here's my big problem, right? I think my biggest problem with this finale is that we spent the entire last episode doing this, like, okay, here's the alternate world. This is where the kid comes from. This is Henry from Earth 2, right?
And
And
then it
that's all fine.
basically didn't really matter.
Well, it's not so much that it didn't matter. It's that by the end of the episode, they seem to want it to be ambiguous. Is he really a different version of him, or is he actually just evil? And they want us to be unsure, just like, or Henry's kind of unsure, and he's
Yeah.
got doubts, right? That's what they want, and that ties in because at the very start of the previously on, is him giving his speech about doubt in the courtroom. That's kind of what it is. And I'm like, okay, fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. The problem is that when that was presented to us last episode,
It was as fact.
it was presented to us just as it was, and sure, they told us at the end of the episode it was technically him telling the story to Molly, so it could have been lies, but it didn't play that way as we were watching it. I don't think it did.
No, it didn't feel like it. It felt like they just threw in a framing device at the end, but it
Mm.
was just, okay, this is truth, and it's a problem for this whole episode. Because when I say, oh, it doesn't really matter, I mean that episode itself doesn't matter. If they just told us, okay, this is what it was, rather than showing us that whole episode's worth, if they told us those little bits of information as a short story, just him just telling Molly, I think I'd be a lot more okay with it.
Very, very possibly, but the episode did not play that way at all. Because at the end of the episode last week, we were not even for a second considering that anything we saw was disingenuous. There wasn't even a hint that it might be disingenuous.
No, and obviously Molly, she feels thoughts and feelings. You'd think that she'd know if he was lying.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not gonna say there was nothing I liked in this episode. There was, but like the actual conclusion and the ambiguity and the overall mystique of what's actually going on, it feels really oddly just kind of unfulfilling. And it's not, and it's not that
Especially the very final moment.
yeah, and it's not that I don't like ambiguity in my stories. In fact, I love it when it's done well. I
It
think it's
just
great.
doesn't make sense here.
It's just not that exciting, this ambiguity, because it doesn't feel like they didn't develop both sides enough to make me question it's one or the other. I left the end of this episode feeling like, no, it's all
Well,
true and Henry's being a dick.
yeah, yeah. I was like, wait, it's an option that it wasn't true.
Yeah, like it never felt like that in the last episode. And of course they throw in that final moment where he smirks as if he's evil, and obviously the moment where Henry sees this demonic face, or maybe more accurately, the true age of the kid, if he's ancient or old or decrepit, whatever,
Yeah,
really old. And it was just like, and because they try to tie a couple of things in, like the murderer, the deaf guy is like, oh, maybe that was the kid trying to stop you from learning more stuff. Um, and at that point though, I'm like, well, why does does the McCulkin the Culkin, why does he finger Henry as the killer? I don't know. Like it took me aback that Henry just didn't. I mean, obviously, I didn't expect him to just believe it like at face value. It's a big thing to take from someone. Oh, this guy's another version of you from an alternate Earth, and here's all the different things that happen differently, and blah blah blah. I get that, but I felt like his arc was going to be that he would ultimately try to help him and get him, send him home because he believes in helping people. Like that's where I thought it was going.
Do you know what? This is the problem. You mentioned the previously on uses the speech about doubt.
Yes.
The whole point of that speech was, hey, we can't convict them unless we're sure. We can't ruin a life or take a life unless
Yes.
we're certain. Whereas this here is, oh, I'm not sure, so I'm going to lock him in a cage. It's completely contradictory to what his speech was.
Which would be fine if it felt like all season the town was changing him, because that's kind of the final point in his speech, right? It's like when Lacey was making the same narration at the start. It's this place. Is that this place does this to you? And he's saying the opposite in the narration, but the kind of thing where he's wrong, right? He's saying no, it's not the place, it's the people, it's us. But no, we know there's something weird about this town. It is affecting things, it is affecting people. But Henry's not believing it. That would be fine if it felt like he was being not manipulated is not the right word, but if he's being changed over the season by the town and whatever presides in this town, then that'd be fine. But I never got that feeling. I got to the end and it just kind of felt like, oh, we're setting up this ambiguity and
yeah.
Him locking the kid up feels pretty out of nowhere, particularly after last week's episode, where it really felt like, no, this is who the kid is and what he's doing.
Do you know what the thing is? I thought about it just over the week. Some things popped into my head as things that could have maybe disproved last week's episode as not being true. We were told that he's the cause of all the evil in Castle Rock. And then he was locked away, and that's why nothing weird has been going on for 27 years, right? That's why all the stuff happened before her time, So, but if he wasn't on this earth before that, he can't have been the cause of that. And then the second thing is,
that's true.
Why would Lacey search for him and lock him up? Why would he choose to throw him in the prison in the cell? If he didn't have a reason to think, no, this guy is the demon, is the devil, right? Like,
I don't have an answer.
No, those are the only things that maybe contradict for me last week's episode. But because last week's episode was presented as such truth, they feel more like continuity errors than opposing theories.
Well, yeah, because the thing here is that the age of him implies that because he would not be this old the way he looks. Like that glimpse when Henry sees his face, right, when he turns around, that is much because he's been here for 27 years, so he'd be in his 60s. That didn't look 60s. That looked like 150, unnaturally old. And to me, that said that he's actually much older than what we're been letting on here, and that he's actually, I don't know, maybe he's looked back multiple times. Well, this is not the first time he's looked back into this part of the timeline.
Which would play nicely with Ruth's stuff of, when she's on the bridge with Molly and says, "Oh no, we've done this before. We'll do it again." Yeah, so there's that looping element going on.
Yeah, and I get that the end it might be, oh, everything loops, everything keeps happening, and it's in a cycle, and now Henry's the one who's got him imprisoned. That's fine, but I felt like that scene with Ruth when she's talking to Molly, and Molly says something different, and she turns around and says, "You've never said that before."
Yeah.
That's the first time we've ever said that. I thought, oh, is this what this is about? Is it about breaking the cycle and changing things?
I think the biggest problem is the ending is contradictory to the story. It just doesn't line up with where the story was going or where our characters were and who they are. It feels like, oh, here's a shock ending.
Yeah, if it not only does it feel contradictory, it just felt abrupt. Like when it skipped ahead a year later and we were doing the coda, I was like, oh, we're okay. I guess we're done. Like, I really didn't feel like we'd went through the journey. I didn't feel like we'd concluded yet. And that left me feeling really weird. And yeah, I mean, if I'm going to talk about things I like, I do actually love when they're in the jail cell and all the convicts who are getting transported from Shawshank get put in the other cell, and his presence makes them all start getting really violent and stabbing and end up shooting all the cops and like that just chaos. The idea that he's actually starting like almost an apocalypse just with this little group of people and it's the whole town's like chaos.
This is the first time in a while where it's felt intentional. Like he was staring at them. He was like, no, I'm doing this. I'm projecting onto them. Yeah, it was the first time maybe since the early stuff in the prison where he felt in control of what he was doing.
Yeah, because after last week we were thinking that maybe he didn't have any control at all. And let's say that his story is true. He's from the other Earth. It's probably like you just phrased it there. He's basically just directing his attention at something. and that basically works, as opposed to it's like an evil power he's got that he's always used, if that makes sense. Or he is just evil incarnate, and this is him, doing this. Because
that's the thing. There's enough things here when we discuss it and pick it apart that okay, I guess he could be evil incarnate again. But and that's where we were for most of the season, and that was fine. It just feels so wrong after last week's episode, and it makes me feel last week's episode was a mistake more than this one.
More than episode 8.
I mean, that one just felt like a time waste. that one, and it's neither here nor there. Last week's actually feels like it contradicts a lot of the stuff from this episode to me, and where we were for the rest of the season. Because that was okay. No, he's alternate Earth. That's a fact now, and we go okay. Maybe he wasn't evil incarnate like we've been going all season, and then here he goes, but maybe he is, and I don't feel it anymore.
No, I don't feel it. It feels unsure of itself, and it's one of those things where this is the feeling that people who don't get Twin Peaks and stuff like that claim that all this sort of stuff is. And I feel like there's an art form to doing mysterious ambiguity and stuff that you have to actually analyze to understand. Because when it comes to stuff that David Lynch does, or it comes to or even something a bit more simple, Lost, right? Lost, J.J. Abrams also produced that. Most of the stuff that it brought up that did contradict something or opened a new door was kind of fascinating. It was like, oh, what does this add to this? How does this recontextualize things? This doesn't recontextualize. I mean, we already recontextualized everything last week. This was saying, no, maybe that's all wrong.
Yeah, and again, if last week had not been presented as absolute truth, if we'd even seen from the start that it was a story they'd been telling, rather than just this thing thrown in at the end, and it was cutting back and forth, and Molly was questioning it.
Honestly, if they wanted to sell me in the ambiguity of the characters not knowing if he's evil or not, I would not have shown a single scene of the other Earth. I would have had the entire episode be a conversation between those two people. I'd have him in a room with her and just tell the story. And I know that sounds like, from an action perspective, it may be dull, but that, to me, that is the experiment there. Is you do the bottle episode where he's just trying to convince her of this story, and that's all the episode is.
Here's the thing. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's what they should have done. But I know because of episode 8, they wouldn't have done that. That would have been 10 minutes of the episode, and then we'd have had another, just a side plot to fill out the runtime.
Yeah, and the reason why they should
maybe
do that
would have been better in the long run.
Yeah, the reason why they should do that is because then we're with the characters, and it's just a story we've heard, and we're unsure. Do we believe them? Do we not? It's hard to say. I mean, one of the arguments for it being fake, I guess, is that he basically tells Molly of like a better version of herself, and almost in a way to get her to trust him. Like, hey, there's this better version of yourself, and you were much happier over there.
Yeah, but then you were dead.
Then you were dead. She gets a lot. She's moved away. She's in a sunnier place, and Wendell's come home for Christmas to visit Henry. Ruth's dead. Yeah. She's buried with Pangborn, at least. That was a nice touch, I guess.
Yeah. But, I mean, it just feels so inconsequential.
It feels underwhelming. I'm really underwhelmed. And I'm actually obviously I got a kick out of the mid-credit scene, right? But I am annoyed that, like, Jackie amounted to nothing more than that accent.
There's a lot of characters that I feel like, honestly, Wendell, the kid, like the son. Yeah. I feel like, other than just to have something for Henry to care about, to get away in this last episode, that was it. Because they did the whole thing with, he can hear the sound too. We're gonna play with that. Yeah. Nothing.
No, she just drives him out of town. It's fine.
Because she looks at him like, you can hear it too. Maybe we should go up there and do it, right? Maybe we don't need Henry after all. Nah, never mind. Forget that.
No.
I don't understand the point of some of these characters.
And it's the funny thing is, though, is I actually really like Jackie. Partly because the character was fun, but mostly because I like Jean Levi. But it felt weird it was the same with having Molly's sister. I mean, we kind of theorized that maybe they've got a plan for her next season, like as a, in a separate story, and that's why it was Alison Tolman. But it feels weird in retrospect now, especially with Jane Levi being kind of wasted like this. With even how much time we spent in the Warden in the first couple of episodes, and obviously she has the big shock death here, which
nice scene.
The scene itself was fine. It felt a bit weird to me, though, that, again, this felt like a really quick way to try and convince us again that he might actually be evil. That he's planted this little figure. and that's
It
led to her
also
death.
feels like a pacing issue for the season in that, she was very heavy at the start of the season and then we didn't really see her for a long time. And then, she's important again for the last episode. Have her be sprinkled throughout a bit more and maybe
Yeah,
this would have had more weight.
no, that's
But
true.
in terms of character, I guess we as you said with Molly's sister, we thought maybe next season. We said the same about Jackie. Maybe she'll be something next
And
season.
it's funny because
Doesn't seem like it.
the mid credit scene can go either way. Either it's a joke to suggest she's going to go back to the Overlook Hotel because she's like, oh, I'm writing a book about killing
Yeah.
people, and I'm going to go back to where it all began. It's like, so you could take that as is that seriously a hint of what season 2 might be, or is it just a little joke, wink, wink, because she's related to The Shining, and that's all it is a
No,
little Easter egg.
I think it's meant to be a way of not having her around next year because as we said, are we really going to leave Castle Rock, the town? Because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't think so.
When that's the name of the show, it doesn't make any sense to do that. So maybe she's just gone next season. She's off at the hotel.
Unless we just go to other Stephen King towns that are prominent and we're just like, that doesn't matter that it's not Castle Rock anymore.
Maybe it's where Shawshank's gone, like it's closed down, right?
Yeah, I could see them doing like an American Horror Story thing where like in season 4 or 5 they bring like multiple this different seasons together, because Henry's still there, the kid's still in that tank, like
yeah. I can also say, I think we mentioned it last week before, but Fargo style jump around time periods here.
yeah.
I think that's maybe the right thing to do, so we don't have to have the ending of this kind of just hanging over it.
I'll be honest, I think the ultimate feeling I have from this at the end is that I don't think it knew what it wanted its own point to be.
No, I was enjoying 3/4 of the journey, I'd say. A couple of missteps here or there for me, but then it didn't know where it was going at the end. Yeah, we spoke a lot about how it's just pulpy fun, and that's fine if you want to be pulpy fun, but you've still got to have an ending.
One might make a joke here that Stephen King books have crappy endings and therefore they are being very faithful to their inspiration. Now, I've not read a lot of his books myself, but I have heard this from other people that he's got a reputation for having weak endings after really good build up.
I've only read a couple, and and those had decent enough endings, but those are two of the most well regarded ones in Carrie.
And he's written like what 60, 70 books, something like that. Maybe more.
Too many is what he's written.
Yes. Sorry, that was just what he did in the 90s. He just multiply that by another 4 or 5. Yeah, it's really murky. Like I wasn't sure how I felt for a lot of the episode. Like I wasn't, because it felt. Because one of the things that we liked about last episode, and one of the things we liked about the Ruth episode, was how focused they were, right? And this one felt like it was lacking focus.
There was a very scattershot.
There was a weird edit early on as well, I thought. The way it cut to the opening titles when he crashed his car, I thought it cut too quick.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, it was weird. It felt paced wrong.
And then you have some of the flashback, like with young Henry pushing his father off the cliff and doing that stuff.
Yeah, do you know what's so funny about that? Is that felt so important as how did his father die in the first half of the season, and by the time they showed us it in this episode, I was like, okay,
yeah, I don't care.
Didn't matter anymore.
No, that should have been a huge moment, right? But it feels like it was just thrown in the middle of everything else. Like, oh yeah, I guess we should show you that.
It really does. It really feels like that wasn't a big deal at the end of the season. It was like, oh yeah, I guess we had to see how he did that, but that's kind of it. Like. And again, it's not about wanting answers. It's about wanting a coherent narrative through line more than anything else.
Yeah, the season kind of lost itself along the way. It was too much stuff for its own good, I think.
Yeah, they had to simplify this a little bit, I think. I mean, sure, it wouldn't have been perfect if we just got this cheesy happy ending where Henry decided to help the kid and sent him on through a portal, and then it was like everyone's happy now because they've all grown as characters. Sure, that might not be great in terms of it's a bit cheesy and simple, but it would be more satisfying than this.
I think the problem is after it's last week's episode that really throws the wrench in this, because after last week's, that's the only ending that feels like where we can still be on Henry's side. If you take last week's episode out of the equation and we just it was like you say, it was just a story that we were told that he's all then none of this is a problem. I'm much more on board with this ambiguity and maybe he's evil, maybe he's not, and Henry not being sure.
Yeah, but
I
again,
might still question his choice and to lock him up because that feels a little out of character based on where he was.
but I also
But
think along the way you have to also really play with the moral dilemma. Like you have to constantly bring up the fact that Henry is this. He tries to be on this right moral side all the time, but it's tested throughout the season, and it didn't feel like it was. It felt like just all of a sudden this is relevant again at the end.
exactly, no, it feels like he's always been the moral good, right? He's always just been,
Yeah.
I'm going to do the right thing from his introduction in the courtroom. And then here we're going, oh, maybe he wasn't always like that because he shoved his dad off a cliff. So, okay, he's not always been so good. So look, he can do these bad things too. But I feel like we didn't get enough of that over the season.
We don't. Yeah. This ending just left me kind of sitting there being like, huh, I guess that's over.
Yeah.
And it's not even like it's the worst possible thing ever. Like I've definitely seen worse, but there was very little. There was a couple of cool moments, but ultimately it was very unsatisfying, and just about every facet. Like I wasn't really satisfied about where any characters really ended up. I mean, Jackie's little post scene was kind of fun, but I mean, and that's fine for her character because she was a minor character. But everyone, like Henry, Ruth, she had that one scene in the bridge, and then she was just dead.
Yeah, Molly's left and she's living with her grandma that we literally haven't seen before.
No, no. Um, no,
We haven't, right? I'm not
no, we haven't.
misremembering this.
No.
I don't even remember her mentioning her.
And then the kid is just in a cage again. And there was one line towards the end about where he says, Lacey would said to him that he would sometimes forget which side of the bars he was on. The idea that he'd feel just as trapped coming here every day and looking through the bars, even though he was on the side to freedom. And it's kind of like, what if the kid is actually wanting to be here because he knows this is what torture, assuming he's evil, he knows this moral dilemma and keeping him here is actually torture for Henry. So he's actually
Yeah,
here
and that's
willingly.
why he has that grin.
Yeah, he wants to do this because feeding off of him for decades before he eventually kills himself, at least he did, will is what he wants. It's what he feeds on.
Yeah, that works. It, but I feel like we're having to reach for a lot of these things here.
Oh yeah, I'm reaching. I am reaching far for this.
And that's the problem. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there. If we go, well, maybe if this and this and this, if it all lines up, that
But
works.
the problem is that none of it hits you in your stomach when you're watching it. None of it's actually apparent or feels like it's hitting a moment. This is just afterwards. We're trying to like salvage what's there because we're not satisfied.
I think I like this episode less now that we've spoke about it for 20 odd minutes.
Yeah, I don't
I
like
mean,
it. I will go out on a limb and say it's the worst episode of the season. You can say another one was filler, but I'll take a fun
no,
filler over ruining the ending.
I think I have to agree with that because I wasn't a big fan of episode. I want to say it was 3. No,
Oh,
no, before that,
before that.
3 or 4, the Molly one.
Okay, 3, yeah.
3. I wasn't a big fan of that episode. I wasn't huge on Molly's character. I didn't think that she was a strong enough character to carry the episode, and I stand by that. 8, I think, was mostly filler, but it was fine filler. It wasn't offensively bad filler. It was just okay. It's filler. I don't really care. This, like you say, it kind of ruins a lot of the season in retrospect because I'm like, okay, that was fun, but
It makes it hard to recommend. I can't recommend this season to people now.
No, I had people asking me 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like, actually, it was after episode 8. They were like, "Hey, you're watching Castle Rock. Is it good? Should I jump in?" I was like, "Yeah, go for it. You'll have if I know these people. I know what their sort of taste like. You'll have a blast with this show." And now I kind of feel bad.
Yeah, like having seen the ending of this season, and it's okay. I mean, obviously we're going to try season 2 because it's going to be a different story, different characters.
But going in a lot more skeptical.
Yeah, like, but it's hard to recommend this season now. And it's not even like it's like a really insulting, like, left field ending. It's just really unfulfilling and like scared. It's scared of taking risks at ending. It's scared of doing anything, or even actually no, that's incorrect.
No, that's not true because it thinks it's taking risks.
It thinks it's taking a risk.
It's being bold.
It's incompetent at taking the risk.
Yes, that's worse.
Yeah, I'd much rather have a well executed safe ending than an incompetent risk taking ending.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've kind of ripped this to shreds, haven't we?
It kind of sucked. Like again, I like the scene in the jail cells. I love the idea of him causing chaos, and
Yeah.
then some of the CG was a little bit rough, but I did like that overhead shot of the town. Now that all these prisoners are out, like just there's chaos everywhere.
Yeah, like I said, I like the scene with Ruth and Molly on the bridge a lot.
Yeah, that on its own was pretty good. Yeah. And yeah, because at that point as well, I still thought this was going to play a factor. Like we were going to use the fact that she'd seen something in a different time or whatever that was going to
Yeah,
help.
and she was kept going like, "Where's the Queen?" Like she wasn't sure.
Yeah, and that led to nothing really. And she in that line, that's the first time you've said that, implying that things have changed, which would also imply that it's not really just Alzheimer's. That there's actually more to this because something's
Yeah,
changed.
exactly. And it's like, okay, this is intriguing. Like I really like that scene, and that's what's frustrating so much because there are still things I like in this episode, which is why I came in going, yeah, it's okay. There's things I like, but the more we spoke about it, now, the less I like it. The more that all these problems outweigh those individual scenes.
It was the same with the opening scene. Actually, it was another flashback to Lacey with the kid in the tank when he was feeding them.
Yeah.
And I had a problem with that scene at the time of the scene because I felt like it didn't add anything new. And obviously, by the end of the episode, the point is to like bookend the episode with now.
It's a nice little mirror, yeah.
But the scene on its own, I didn't feel it really added anything from what we'd seen in the previous flashbacks to this stuff.
No, it was for the sake of mirroring the ending, which I thought, disregarding our feelings on the ending, I thought the scene itself mirrored the opening of the show with Lacey down there quite nicely.
Sure, yeah.
So I mean, didn't really need that scene at the start of the episode.
No, that's fair. Yeah, bungled execution, haphazard and messy. It doesn't feel coherent. Because that's the thing, you can have ambiguity, but it still has to feel coherent, like it's very intentional, and the point is that you look for the breadcrumbs. And I'm not just saying this to rag on Star Wars The Last Jedi, but I'm kind of going back to one of my old phrases for that, is just because you've subverted expectations doesn't mean it works. Like, you have to subvert into something that's either interesting or changes how you think about the story in a positive way. And this doesn't do that. It just subverts for the sake of, hey, gotcha.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the problem is it did that last week. You can't pull it again. You already did the subversion last week with the, hey, this is what's really going on.
Oh, I mean, you can have you can subvert again, but the subversion has to still include what we learned the previous time.
Yeah.
So you still have the fact that there's this alternate world, but maybe we'd learn something about that alternate world that would change our perception as to what it is and where he came from.
Maybe if it was as simple as he intentionally came over here to ruin things. Knowing that Henry had gone over and what the effect he had on that world was, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he'd come over here with the intention of being evil, like, oh, I know what I can do over there. That's something there that you can still play with him being evil. You can play with the alternate world thing still. And you can still have most of what we saw last week be true, just missing a little bit, which we could have maybe filled in this week.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I'm just trying to think of a way to still include that, and I'm struggling, admittedly, but then maybe don't do that in the first place. Then.
Yeah, it's messy. I mean, I always advocate for people to try better things and try and be bigger and bolder. But ultimately, this was shooting way out of its range, and it just fumbled onto its face.
Yeah, I think it was the second week, maybe, or third week, episode 4 or 5. We'd established, you know what, this isn't going to be anything amazing, but it's schlocky fun, right?
Yeah.
And by the end, it decided it didn't want to be that anymore. It wanted to be something more, and it wasn't capable of that.
Yep, can't really conclude this any better than that. Bit of a mess, unfulfilling, and I don't hate it. I'm really unsatisfied.
Yeah, like I say, I feel like I'm never going to watch this season again.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. There we go. It's a troubled adolescent. I'm a disappointed parent. That's what this is.
Yeah. He's like, I know it could be better. You expect better from it.
Yes. So that is Castle Rock. Unfortunately, it's a pretty negative ending to season 1, but hopefully season 2 picks up. And of course, we're back with other TV shows. Obviously, the Deuce season 2 just started. We're halfway through Better Call Saul season 4. We've got Jack Ryan and Amazon we're working through. Maniacs coming on Netflix soon. I'm just telling everyone about a few things that are coming up TV wise.
Yeah, I think we're trying. Is it called The First?
Yes, on Hulu. Yes.
Yes.
That's the Mission to Mars
Yes.
drama.
That'll be
yes.
this weekend. We get to that, I think.
I think it is.
If
Yeah.
I'm remembering the dates.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's this weekend.
Yeah.
So
One out, one in for Hulu.
pretty much. So that is us. So let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Let us know what you think of the season in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to support the channel and the reviews and everything we do here, go on to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you can support us over there for as little as $1 per month. And if you can't do that, don't feel too bad. You can support us by watching ads on YouTube and that kind of thing, as well as all the social medias and everything else. But that is us, so thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?